We all expect to have to grieve the loss of our partner or our husband when we're navigating divorce. But why the hell does that grief stick around for so long? And why does it show up in all of these places, these unexpected places to kind of get us when we least expect it? Well, today's expert is all about helping us learn how to navigate grief so that we can move through it instead of getting stuck in it. Welcome to the Crazy Ex-Wives Club, a podcast dedicated to helping women navigate the emotional journey that is divorce. I'm your host, Erica, and if you're trying to figure out life after the big D, welcome to the club. Whether you're contemplating divorce or dealing with the aftermath or any of the many phases in between, the club has got you covered. Each week, you'll hear stories from women who have been in your shoes. This isn't about spilling tea on divorce details. This is about giving you the tools to take control of your own healing journey. Listen in weekly for advice, tips, and tools to help you move through each stage of the process. Welcome back to another episode of the Crazy Ex-Wives Club. I'm your host, Erica, and today our guest is Suzanne Jabour. Now, Suzanne is a grieving mom who found meaning in her loss through providing grief education, and I am so excited to introduce you guys to Suzanne because she has a wealth of knowledge around helping us all navigate grief. So welcome, Suzanne. Great to have you on the show today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me and having us this space for this super important topic.
Right? Because you guys have heard me talk a little bit. I was newly mourning the loss of my father while also mourning the loss of my marriage. A lot of grief. I had been living in a state of grief for years at that point. And it just, we know it. It's like, how do I want to broach this topic, Suzanne? But like when somebody elderly, when a grandparent dies, are we sad? Yes. But we also have some relief. Or if somebody is really sick, we have sadness. Like my dad had cancer, so we had sadness, but we also were so grateful that he was out of his suffering. And then we're like, okay, we get it. And we grieve together and we all come together and we see each other. And then there's the stuff that sticks in the quiet after when everybody else goes home and it still shows up and it's still there. So welcome to helping us all navigate this grief, Suzanne.
I love that naming because that's really exactly how it feels. And part of the myth that we've been sold is that this loss happens usually of a loved one. We're going to start there because that's the one we all get. We're supposed to grieve that. So we have that loss of a loved one and we all come together, right? We have the ceremony, whatever it is. We feel all connected. Then we go back home and life is supposed to go on. But in fact, that's when the grief is actually just getting started. So the myth we've kind of been sold is we're going to come together, we're going to have the funeral, the celebration of life, the whatever, and then we're done. Done and dusted, that's all over, and we go on like nothing happened. And that to me is the most damaging story because it makes us feel like there's something wrong with us when what we're doing is grieving, which is completely natural. And as you've so accurately pointed out, especially in this space, it happens for all kinds of losses. So yes, you're grieving the loss of your dad, the loss of your marriage, all the losses that come with a divorce. So the loss of self, the loss of expected future, the loss of relationships, you lose friends because they pick sides. You've lost part of your community. You might have lost your home. You've lost maybe your car, your shared bank account, like all the things. There's a million of them. We all know who've been through this experience and they all need grieving. That's not all going to look the same, right? They're not all going to be griefs that have you curl up in a ball on the sofa sobbing so hard you can't breathe. Some of them might be. And there's no telling which ones that's going to be. So doesn't that sound fun?
It sounds so fun. And I think that the other piece about it too is we have that thing in person and it's okay then for everybody to cry because you can't help but cry when you're in person. But then afterwards, you're not supposed to be crying anymore. And you're definitely not supposed to let somebody see you cry. And that's when we hide. And that's when now we're alone in it. And so I really want to make sure that we shine some light on the process so that you don't feel so alone. Because my guess is 99% of you are grieving the loss of your marriage, your hopes and your dreams, your partner, your extended family alone. Probably on a Friday night when your kids go to the other house and all of a sudden the emptiness of the house gets to you. Or I would be doing little tasks. I'd be washing the dishes and I would be overcome with a wave because I wasn't busy anymore. And it gave my mind that space. And so we wanted to shine some light on it. So let's talk about the process of grief. What does that process actually look like?
So, at its most fundamental level, grief is the natural response to loss of all kinds. So, all of these ones we're talking about, and I just wanted what came to you when you were saying that it's like the Friday night when the kids are gone to the other house. You know when else it might be? The Saturday night when you're only washing one dish, or you're only washing the pot because you stood at the sink and ate out of the pot, because why would you even bother getting plates out because there's only you, right? So it's that response to that sense of change, that sense of uncertainty, because there's a lot of uncertainty entangled in our grief. Whatever the loss is, it's because of change and that uncertainty. And it's a huge amorphous amoeba-like blob of, as my daughter so eloquently stated it when my son died, it's all the emotions all at once. And that part can be really confusing because you can be grieving the loss of your marriage and that your kids aren't home that weekend, and also be super excited that it means that on Saturday you get to go on a day-long road trip with a girlfriend because the kids aren't here. And so it's both of those. It's the both and. And if we can embrace that both and of being sad and calm, or sad and grateful, or despairing and hopeful, if we can embrace that paradox and that holding of paradox, it really does ease the burdensome feeling of it all. The other place we can really shift how we experience grief is by really being intentional in staying curious. So when I'm working with clients or when I'm talking with someone who's grieving, I talk a lot about curiosity. And the reason that's so important is twofold. For me, I had this download probably in the shower, I don't actually remember, that to survive that particular loss when my son died, I had to be conscious and curious. Conscious was about feeling all those emotions. And I know you have done episodes because I've listened to them about really getting in touch with your emotions, really allowing them to be okay. I had to embrace the okayness of all those quote unquote bad emotions, which of course there aren't any bad emotions. They're just all messages. They're all tools for us to learn from. But I had to get the okayness of that. And then the curiosity, I realized, became so powerful because curiosity kept me out of fear. Curiosity kept me in growth. Curiosity kept me in possibility. So then you have despair and possibility. And those balance each other out in a way that I feel keeps us out of getting stuck. Because if we can allow all of those emotions to be okay, if we can just get with the okayness of them, we don't have to like them. We don't have to be thrilled they're there. We just have to get okay with them existing and letting them go through us and move on. And we can hold that curiosity so that we stay out of fear. Then we have a chance to stay moving, because it's the denial and the fear that keep us stuck. It's the pretending. It's the letting people should on us. Scroll back about 30 seconds to how many times you said should in that sentence about what we should be doing. As long as we're listening to that should, we're done for. It's so much more difficult. So the other really critical thing, and this goes for every kind of grief, if you're in a grief where you have that getting together ceremonial thing, we need permission after that to be grieving, to be in tears, to run screaming out of the grocery store because it's playing a song that makes us think of our person. Whatever it is, we don't get that from our culture yet, right? I'm here to rattle the cage and do everything I can to make that shift, but we don't get it from our collective yet. We don't get it a lot of times from our family or our close friends because they're scared for us too. We have to give ourselves permission.
Yeah. Well, feelings are uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right. And so as a culture and society, we don't sit with our feelings.
No.
And that's where you're saying stay curious about it, ask it questions. So often all we want to do is shut down and ignore it, shut down and ignore it. And when you ignore it and you run from the feeling, what happens? It gets bigger. It screams louder because it is so desperate for you to just acknowledge it. And that's where I always envision, you're in a storm and the storm is all around you. And I want you to plant your feet and face off into the storm and be like, I'm ready for you. I'm ready. And I am now going to face you and I'm going to lean in and I'm going to let this storm go by me but I can't do it by ignoring that there's something going on all around me. I got to look at it, face it, and be like, okay, I see you, and I'm not going to run anymore.
Yeah. Because it's the boxing up, right? It's the not feeling our emotions that we've been so conditioned, particularly. I think we're doing slightly better with young people now, but it's very slightly. But those of us that are, 30 plus, that's how we were brought up, right? You're supposed to be quiet. You're supposed to be happy. You're supposed to be all the things. And as women, it's especially embedded in our culture. Find a movie where the woman is messy and human, and there's not very many. We're mostly pretty and skinny and tall, and we look good and we say nice things, right? So we're bombarded by that messaging all the time, and that really inhibits our ability to have these real conversations with ourselves, with our feelings. I love that idea of just allowing it to be this cloud. There's an amazing book called The Tools, and I'll get wrong the people who wrote it, but if you just Google The Tools, they have a great website. The book is amazing. And they have this concept, this tool of dealing with pain. And it's exactly what you're talking about, right? It's about envisioning it as this big, gray, messy storm cloud. And you literally yell at the cloud, bring it on. And you walk into the cloud. And that, like, empowerment, like you are empowering yourself for all of that to be okay. And to know that you can stand in that storm. You can walk through that storm. You can see that storm the next time it's coming and know that you are strong enough to get through it. You can welcome the storm. Like, we can have a whole different relationship with these messy human emotions that really allow us to have a much fuller human experience. Like, our denial of grief in all its versions and pretending that it's not a thing that happens is minimizing our ability to live this human life. And it's really creating isolation when what we need is connection. And that's really problematic.
Yes. And the thing that I think keeps us quiet is that fear that we're doing something wrong about it. Fear is so complex that if grief is your favorite emotion, fear is my favorite emotion.
Oh, that's why we get along so well. We've picked the really good ones, the juicy ones.
Oh, it's a juicy one, right? Because it is it's a 4-letter word, but it can keep you stuck forever. It can keep like, the fear of what it's going to feel like to actually look at the pain creates that anxiety in the body, that angst, that like, I can't do this. And then when you just stop and lean into it, you can. It's the fear that makes you not speak out. Like, I'll cry quietly on my own because I must not be doing this right.
Yeah.
And then I think there's that fear too in this one, especially if you're the one that wanted it. So we had a 2-year separation, and I fought with everything I had to try and get him to realize the marriage was worth saving. And I am so grateful that that is not the path that we were on. Right. But in the moment, that is what I committed full body, everything to, making sure that I could figure out how to make this work. Well, so then at the end, when I was like, you know what, this is not it. And we both sat together and decided divorce was going to be the option and started the process. And then paperwork was done, and then it hit. And then I couldn't get off the couch, and I couldn't make dinner for the night. And we had cereal a lot of nights because I was so sad by the amount of grief, but I was so confused because I had spent 2 years to make this decision. I had uncovered all of the emotions. I had gone through the process, and I came to a place, a really heart-led place, that what's in the best interest of the 3 of us is 2 happy families. I know that that's true. So then why the hell did it still show up? Why the hell did it still knock me on my ass? It was sneaky in that way.
Yeah. And that's such a brilliant naming, because the grief comes whether the change is something we wanted or didn't want, because change brings loss, loss brings grief. That's just the way the chain works. So when something has changed, even if it's something we really wanted, there still will be that soup of emotions that we call grief. It's, I think, partly related to the uncertainty that comes up. It's partly related to our senses sometimes of guilt and like letting other people down and not holding up our people's expectations, our own expectations, other people's expectations, society's norms, whatever it is. So a lot of the time it does come after, as you say, this very thoughtful, heart-led decision that ultimately was for the good of all. And you're still then facing the grief and all the sort of symptoms that come with it. And I think the other part of what's really scary is that because we don't talk about grief and we don't acknowledge it, and we don't give each other permission and have conversations, we don't know what it actually looks like. We don't know there are physical symptoms, right? We don't know it's normal for our brain to not work right and for our intestinal system to be all messed up and for us not to be able to sleep, or to sleep not enough, too much, none of it restful. We don't know that we're clumsy, that we have muscle weakness. There's so many physical things that can happen to us when this grief thing comes, and we don't know about that. So then you're left thinking, oh my gosh, there's something wrong with me. I'm doing it wrong. I shouldn't have it anyway because we thought this through very carefully, and this is actually what I ultimately want. And that's when the curiosity can just set us free, because we can just be okay with being curious. I don't understand what this is. Who might know? Who could I reach out to? Who do I know that's divorced or experienced a similar loss, or is a grief educator like me, or has a blog and a podcast like you, or an amazing community? Like, where can we get the information that lets us know whether what's happening to us is normal? Because what I tell grievers all the time is, I don't care what the symptom is or what the emotion is that you're feeling. Somebody before you felt that and experienced that in grief, 100%. But when it happens to you, if you don't know, like for me, the one that was the scariest, because I didn't know it was coming, didn't expect it at all, even though I had had many big losses in my life before my son died, was the grief brain. My brain just did not work at all. So if you're a relatively recently divorced person who's also trying to navigate kids and co-parenting, and your brain doesn't work, welcome to normal, right? This is very, very normal. But people don't tell us that. So I really thought that I had some kind of instant onset brain something. And I was convinced, like, so not all, and I kept saying to myself, like, this cannot be fair. My son has died. I have completely lost my own identity. I knew I had to become a new person. And now I have this some kind of instant onset brain disorder. This just cannot be right. Well, of course, it's normal. There's books about it. We're doing studies about it. There's amazing information online. If you want to nerd out about it, The Grieving Brain, amazing book. You will love it. If you don't care to nerd out about it, just know nothing unusual is happening to you and there's nothing wrong with you.
It is so interesting, right? Everything emotional to physical is connected. And I'm grateful that the science is catching up, and I'm grateful that they're starting to piece these pieces together, because before they would have just, I remember, I mean, my long majority of my life, I've had some sort of GI imbalance, probably started from massive antibiotics of sinus infections when I was young, which disrupts the healthy biome that's supposed to be in there. But right before the separation, right before I figured out what was wrong, and then throughout the divorce process, it was like off the charts. I mean, it landed me in the hospital, but everybody was like, well, there's nothing wrong. Go take an antacid. There's nothing wrong. And then when you start to learn about the fact that the emotions are showing up as a physical symptom, you stop blaming your body for not working or your mind for not working. And instead you're like, oh, this is something that I need to clear out. This is something that I just need to be with, or this is something that I need to give it some space and time for it to heal.
And really, the path to that is the emotions. And that's why I get so angry that we've been so conditioned to, like, even have the concept that there are good ones and bad ones. It's so messed up. And really, and if we can get to the nuanced naming of them, if we can befriend them at that kind of level, I send people to a feeling wheel all the time. Like feelingwheel.com has a great one. There's emotion. You just Google, there's tons of them. Because if we can get to that nuance, if we can move ourselves past sort of the sad, glad, mad trifecta of naming and get to, you know, maybe it's despair, maybe it's anger, maybe it's frustration, maybe it's exhaustion. I remember when I was doing my grief educator course, we were working with a feelings wheel and doing some exercises. And one of the things that surprised me the most on there was that tired was one of them. How often do we think of tired as being an emotion? It can be an emotion. I was like, oh, that is very liberating, because I'm all about letting them in, being okay with them, all of that. Like, I was really embracing that part of my understanding of how this worked. And if you can get to that nuanced naming, what we know about emotions is that even just naming them helps them to move. So that goes all the way back to like that box on the shelf, that stuffing them that is not doing us any good. Name it and name and release, let it flow through. Oh, I see you. There you are, despair. There you are, frustration. There you are, gratitude. There you are, peace. There you are, right? Then they can keep moving. It's energy in motion. We got to keep it moving.
You love this show? Now here's one that's built specifically for the hardest part of the year. Holiday Heart to Heart is a private podcast style program made for this exact season. When emotions hit harder, grief shows up uninvited, and it is way too easy to fall back into old patterns. You don't need more tips. You need ways to live your truth this season. You need permission to be you, messy, rebuilding, authentic, and lovable you. Visit thecrazyexwivesclub.com/holiday to learn more and start streaming today. And hey, it's on Black Friday deals now through December 1st. Yeah, I too didn't have a wide vocabulary of emotional words. and and that really empowered me, because if you're like, I'm mad. Okay, well, mad has about 20 different emotions underneath it. And you can't get rid of the mad until you actually figure out what the emotion was. And so I used the emotional ladder and I climbed the ladder. And so it was printed on the fridge. And so instead of just being like, oh, I'm mad or I'm sad today, I said, okay, great, you're sad, but what are you? But what are you? And then I looked to figure out what the actual label was, because there was this process of, logically, there is a word. Physically, there is a sensation, but they are not connected. And so when I started to look into, and so then again, tiptoe, lean in and be like, well, I'm sad today. What am I really feeling? I'm feeling a little bit of hopelessness that I'm always going to be alone. Or I'm feeling a little bit of jealousy that everybody else has a family to go home to. When I can get into that, it can shift in the body. And all of a sudden I started to realize, oh, when I feel that, that's tied into this emotion. And now I can use all my senses to be able to not let it own me. I own it. It doesn't own me. And then I can do something with it. But putting a label to it was really powerful. It's also really interesting. I started doing that with my son when he was 2-ish. We were in the second daycare room at that point. So somewhere around 2, because what is it? The terrible twos, the tantrums, the this and that. And I started using the words, right? Wow, it looks like you're really mad. It looks like you're really this. So you start with that basic one, and then we started to get into it, because otherwise it's just that big chaos storm all around you. And every time I did that with any little 2-year-olds, it was the fastest way the tantrum stopped. And they're like, oh, yeah. And I'm like, yes, because we are all just desperate to be seen and heard and acknowledged in the emotions we are experiencing.
And I love the ladder concept too, because a lot of the time when we feel mad or we're frustrated or we're angry, we just want to be happy. Like, we're supposed to feel joy.
Yeah.
Well, okay, but happy and joy is about 25 ladder steps from where you are. So maybe aim for the one that's 3 steps above where you are. And then from there, you can aim to the next one. And then from there, you can aim to the next one. But we want to make these big emotional leaps. And that's also just not how emotions or our body works. So the ladder concept is really, really helpful too, especially when we're feeling those sort of big, heavy, low vibration, low energy emotions that just kind of feel heavy and weighted. You can't leap from there to the heights. You have to go, like everything, step by step up the ladder. You can skip a few, but I can't remember what the number is because that's not my expertise, but it's like, I think 3 or 5 is the most you can skip, somewhere around there. And we're often looking to skip like 15. And it's like, well, then again, we're setting ourselves up for failure. And then we're mad that we can't even do that right.
Well, and that's where you guys, that's where you get toxic positivity. That's where you get fake it till you make it. So let's go down this rabbit hole, because a lot of my listeners maybe they've heard little pieces, but this is a piece, you guys. I'm going to talk to you about the emotional ladder and how I approach it. So thank you, Suzanne, for giving me 5 minutes to go on this little rant here. This is the work that we do when we work one-on-one together. When you join the club and you're in the membership, right? This is the core of how I have rebuilt my life so that I am unconditional and in control of my emotions. So I want you to envision a ladder. In your ladder, the bottom of the ladder is down in a hole. And at the bottom of that hole, it is very dark, and you have zero idea how you are ever going to get out of it. You can barely see the light at the top. But what you know is you can feel something ahead of you, right? And it's those ladder rungs, and you can take 1 step up and maybe 2 steps up. And you know what? Maybe you get knocked down a little bit. You slide down the ladder because you try climbing too fast. But as you go up this ladder, and I will add the emotional ladder PDF download, you guys, I'll put the link in there. You can go get it, print it out, put it on your fridge. But this is the work. The work is saying, like, I'm at the bottom of the freaking hole right now, and it feels like shit. Okay, I want you to look at 1 or 2 steps up on the ladder, and I'm going to challenge you to change the thoughts that are on autopilot to just that much. It is easy to shift a thought of hopelessness. I will always be alone. I will never get my life back on track, to a couple steps up, which might live somewhere more in blame. Like, I hate the fact that he did this to us. And I hate the fact that he has made me have to restart. Now, that is a more powerful emotion than I am never going to get my life back together. Can you guys feel those two when I say those two, how they feel different in the body? Now, the goal is not to stay in the I hate him and he can go to hell, not the goal. The goal is then grab a few more, grab a few more. And at best, if you are in the heap on the bottom, at best, I want you to aim for content and satisfied. Because the more you try to reach for something like hopeful and joyful and love and abundance, the bigger failure you feel like, because it's unrealistic. It's unrealistic to get to that. When you can hold content and satisfied, I will guarantee joy, love, and abundance will start trickling in throughout your day. But we try to say, well, it's been a year or it's been 6 months or I should be over this by now. But if we have not done the work to climb the ladder and consciously choose how to shift our thoughts, you will stay down in the bottom. And so for those of you who are listening, if you're like, I'm really done staying on the bottom, Erica, like, it's not a time thing and it's not an effort thing, you guys. We have to change your frequency, and that is climbing the ladder. And I use that thing all day long. The moment something didn't feel good, I said, where am I? What does that feel like? Can I rewrite that in my mind just one step? And that will be the fastest way that you can climb back out of any of those darker emotions. But you got to choose to do it. And so you got to either put yourself in the space where they'll hold you accountable and help you find that next rung, or you got to hold yourself accountable and call yourself out every time you're sitting somewhere else and just know 2 steps forward, 1 step back. That is the game. That is the game. But when you're 2 steps forward, 1 step back, everything is above content. So it's excitement and joy and love and abundance and like unconditionalness. You don't care that you fell 2 steps or 1 step back. You're still happy. It still works. So it's a process, you guys, to be able to move through it. Thank you for letting me go on that little rant.
Yeah. And I love the parallels in the way that we work, because for me, it's about conscious and curious. The conscious of the emotions, the curious about what next. And it's so exactly what you're talking about. Like, if I can name that I'm at rung 2, I can be curious about how I get to rung 3. Or how do I, could I take a leap to rung 4 just so that if I slide back, I'm still at 3, right? And then what is that dialogue you're having with yourself? What is your itty bitty committee saying to you is true? That is made up. It's all made up malarkey. It's nothing. It's not reality. And for me, I talk about, like, could you just get to peace? How about if you could get to peace? We don't need to get to joy and all these highfalutin things that feel a million miles away from we are, because you can also hold peace and despair at the same time. You can be at peace with it. But that's about the awareness, the conversation with yourself, the investigation of the emotion, the looking at what might be next. People say to me all the time, because it's another one of those grief myths, time heals all things. I'm like, oh, that's the biggest load of hooey balooey. Time is the space in which we do the work. And the only thing that happens in time is we're doing the work. And if we're not doing the work, time is not doing anything except moving on. That's it. It's a way to measure so that we can all show up at a meeting and be there at the same time. But it doesn't do anything magical. It creates space for us to do the work.
And it's in that space, you guys, that you start to find the pause, right? That you're like, oh. And in the pause, you get to make a choice. Do I want to continue staying here, or do I want to do something different? I mean, I stayed on that couch, hopeless, despair, feelings of depression, so upset this is what was happening to my life, until the one day I just was like, I'm done. I'm done crying over this. I'm done feeling this upset. Now, did I still have moments where I cried and grieved over it? For sure. But that new decision, that new taking my power back, that I was like, I do not want to sit in this anymore, meant that now I was making choices of doing things that helped me feel better, right? Working out, getting movement, trying different social activities, taking a nap. My favorite, you guys, take a freaking nap as often as possible. Because again, remember that physical part and emotional part? There's a lot of energy leaving the body. when we're grieving. And so you need a lot more sleep, and you're probably not sleeping so well in the middle of the night. And so using these tools, that's what helps you start to do the work.
Yeah. And I want to just be really clear too, if you're in those early days of grief, if you're in that pit where you can barely see the light, I remember thinking, I am in this train tunnel and I cannot even see a pin spot of light. There is nothing but black. We are saying all of this with no judgment. If that's where you are, that is fine. Get okay with being there, and okay with there being a possibility of something else. There's a possibility of something else. And this grief thing, these kind of life ruptures that we're talking about, whether it's divorce, loss of a child, loss of a spouse, loss of whatever it is, that is the ripest time, the ripest season in your life for transformation that will ever happen to you. And you can choose that or not. And that is your individual choice. But if you are not happy with where you're at, if you don't feel satisfied, peaceful, content, it's an amazing opportunity to choose something different. Baby step by baby step, ladder rung by ladder rung, because there is a different possibility out there for you.
Yeah. I know when we had first spoke, you said the grief will change you.
Yeah.
And the choice is whether you want to be transformed by accident or transformed with intention.
That's the choice you're making, right? Because you will be different. It's impossible not to be. So what's possible if you do that intentionally?
I love that. Well, I want to thank you. And Suzanne has a little offer for you guys. So if you are really struggling with the grief, obviously we talk about the grief in the club. It's a little different. The club is about helping you rise. The club is your space to show up, to get in the room with other like hell yes women who are rebuilding and owning that journey. And we spend some time. I mean, on our last chat, we talked a lot about how frustrating it can be, how triggering it can be to have to work with an ex who always puts up a fight. Okay. Mm-hmm. So we're in that space to say, yeah, this is the reality. And we're here. We're going to rise up together and help you find your new person. And there is a space where sometimes you need grief coaching, because the grief is so huge and holding it on your own needs more. And so Suzanne does have an offer for listeners if you want to share with them what it is.
Yeah. So what I am offering for folks that made it this far, because you listened to a conversation about grief, congratulations. Thank you. I offer a regular-ish series of workshops. So what I'd love to offer you is a discount code, and we'll put what I do is the initials of the podcast. So CEW in the discount code spot. We'll get you a discount, and you can come join in a workshop, learn how to support someone, learn how to do it yourself. Just learn, because if we can close this knowledge and skill gap, then we're really in a space to be able to go, oh, I'm actually okay. There is nothing wrong with what I'm experiencing. Yeah. I'm just going to take one step at a time up that ladder.
Yeah. And I love what you just said there. It's a skill gap, you guys. This is a skill we didn't learn. And now you are having to learn it in one of the biggest ruptures that you'll experience. Everything in your life is being turned over and restarted. And so, yes, it's hard. And it is a skill that you have to learn. I want to share another quote, because this was something that really helped me and helped me transform how I looked at grief. So when I saw this, I pinned this and I reminded myself every time that grief hit, every time those waves of sadness showed up. And the quote is, "Grief, I've learned, is really just love. And it's all the love you want to give but cannot. And all that unspent love gathers up in the corners of your eyes, the lump in your throat, and in that hollow part of your chest. Grief is just love with no place to go." So when I found that quote, what it did was empower me to ask, where could I channel that love differently, or where does that love still exist? Because it felt so hopeless to sit and know, like, oh my God, here it is again. And it's overwhelming and it's so all encompassing. And so instead I'd say, oh, this is love. This is love that has nowhere to go. And it wasn't love like towards the person. It was love towards an experience I thought I wasn't going to have, right? So I was grieving the loss of who was ever going to go to a concert with me again. And when I realized that, I said, oh, so this is actually a love for how much you liked going to these events. Okay, Who else can you create that love with? Do you want to go by yourself? Do you want to ask one of your girlfriends to go? So I started buying 2 seats for concerts that I want to go to. And then I figured out if I was going by myself or if somebody was going with me. The show would pop up and I'd grieve the loss that I didn't have somebody I could text to ask if they could go. And instead I said, buy the ticket, right? Buy yourself your own flowers. Buy the ticket and then figure out those details later, or grieving the loss of the holiday. Well, what was it? Oh, I really wanted to create this special moment. Okay. Can you still create it? Can we channel that love somewhere else? It's not a bad thing. It's just a big emotion that has nowhere to go. And so how can we see it and transmute it and move it somewhere else?
Yeah. And I love that too, because I think it's also okay. We know when it's the loss of a loved one, we can feel the love for them. Yeah. I also think it's okay, as someone who's gone through a divorce, I really love the good parts of my marriage and the amazing memories we created as a family, as a dad and a mom and 2 kids. Well, we're no longer a dad and a mom and 2 kids. I'm now a mom and 1 kid. Like, my life has completely changed since then. But I'm totally okay now with really remembering those beautiful moments as beautiful moments and really loving those moments and those memories and that amazing stuff that we did and relationship that we had and beautiful kids that we raised. And did I stay with that person? No. I was the initiator. Like, I was absolutely okay with the divorce. I still had to grieve all the things. But it's also okay in these complicated moments and these complicated ruptures to really hold that love for the amazing parts.
Yeah. And isn't that the goal? Isn't that the goal, that we can sit in his space X number of years later, whether or not your now ex is in the room with you or not, that part doesn't matter. But to be able to reflect back and be like, I appreciate the journey we went on, because I wouldn't be who I am today without the path that I had to walk. And it wasn't always easy and it wasn't always bright and sunny, but I did it and it helped me become who I am today. And that's really that power of being transformed, pain into purpose, right? Like, you make the choice, and where you land is 100% reliant on how you choose to take on this new chapter and the conditions that come with it.
Yes.
I love that. You guys, until next week, give yourself some grace. Grief is heavy. It's a skill that you have to learn. It is a process of gently tiptoeing into those big emotions that you have not wanted to look at. So I challenge you to find a little space, right? Go for a walk or grab your journal or put on a good playlist for yourself and write out some of that grief that you're ready to acknowledge. Just the little pieces, and you'll know it because it'll be those things that you just are missing. And when you find a thing that you miss, I want you to just write it out and find the grief layer that's in there, and then end it with the knowing that you are going to be able to channel that love in a new direction. It's not gone forever. You're just learning how to rewire it somewhere else. We'll be back next week with another great episode. And that's it. Another great episode of the Crazy Ex-Wives Club, a podcast for women learning how to heal from their divorce. Tune in next week for more advice and tips to help you figure out life after divorce. And until then, give yourself grace, do the best you can, and know that this is all part of the process.